Welcome friends, in this video we're going to learn about returning entire tables from calling a function. So this is going to be categorically different compared to the last video. So returning entire tables from calling functions. Sometimes you'll also see this described as table valued functions. Remember, a scalar valued function is one that returns a number. A table valued function is then one that returns an entire table from its operation, so it's quite different. Okay? All right, so let's take a look here. I'm going to begin as follows. I'm going to use AdventureWorks, go, and let's create this function as follows. Create function. So this syntax is the same as before. And then I will say here, get product details. So remember in AdventureWorks, there's a schema named production. Within that is a table named product, and that allows you then to look at the details of a product. That's why I'm calling this get product detail. I'm going to say here now at, and then product ID int. So we are going to pass in the product ID, and once we pass that in, we're going to get a table out of that. All right, let's take a look here. I'm going to say the following: returns, and this time, unlike before, remember in the last video after the returns, you basically had a simple data type like money or something like that, or integer or nvarchar or whatever it happens to be. Here, on the other hand, you're going to make a whole table header because you're returning an entire table essentially. So I'm going to say add product details. That will be the name of the table. And then you put the table keyword. And then after that, you put the columns that you want to return. Remember, we are returning an entire table. I'm going to type name as the first field. And after that, I'm going to type name in lowercase. You put the comma after it, and then type color. And here I will say nvarchar, that's the data type. And then lastly, list price. And the data type of that is money. All right, let me move the panel over, size things up a little better. There we are. So nvarchar, remember, is just a data type. Money is just a data type. And the name here, spelled lowercase, is also a data type. The question is, where is it coming from? Take a look. Go into AdventureWorks on the left side in the Object Explorer. Expand the Programmability folder, and then expand the one that says Types. And here, when you do that, take a look. Expand the one that says User-Defined Data Types. Expand that node. And then take a look inside. You see where it says dbo.name and then nvarchar 50, null. So this is a user-defined data type. Take a look. I'm going to show you this in another perspective. Remember, it's a user-defined data type. Like we can have nvarchar, varchar, money, date. Those are defined basically by the definition of SQL Server, right? The way it's been constructed as code. And this is our own data type. Is this used anywhere? Take a look. Go into tables and then expand. Let's see, person.person, and take a look here in the first name. So I am inside the person schema and the person table. I've expanded the columns, and you see where it says first name and then it says name, and then within that nvarchar 50, and the same thing with the middle name, name. Same thing with the last name, name, and then nvarchar 50. That's a bit unusual, and that is so because that name, the capital N-A-M-E, is basically using, if you look carefully down below, it's basically using, you got to go through everything, it's using this right here. See this user-defined data type, name. Okay, I hope you've got that. And I'm using that also over here, so if I type, let's see, capital N like this, that's okay too. So remember, one thing is a field name and the other one is a data type that happens to simply look the same as the field name. Okay? Good, let's continue. So I'm going to say as, and then begin and end as we've done before. And of course, as soon as you do that, you see where it says there, the last statement included within a function must be a return statement. So here, we'll get to that portion in a few minutes as we construct things, okay? All right, so I'm going to say the following. I'm going to say here inside the begin, I will say declare. And because I have all of these quantities right there, name, color, and list price. I want to make variables to represent them within the body of our function. So I'm going to say declare and then add name. And then at the next stage, I'm going to say here color and then varchar and then list price as money. So I'm declaring these here because remember up here I have a list of them in the header of the table that we're going to return. At the next stage, I'm going to actually now assign values to them. So I'll say select and then name equals name. Then I will say color equals color. So remember, how is this operating? You've got a variable named name and it's set from the table. Then you've got a variable named color and it's set from the table essentially, see? And so on. So the next stage you're going to put at list price and set that also from the table by using list price. Keep that in mind, okay? And at the next stage, you can type from production.product. So what is this doing so far? Well, remember the from will go first, right? That gives you basically columns. Once you have the columns, then you will take the list price column and set that equal to be the list price variable. Color is set then to the color variable and the name is set to the name variable. That's also why up here I have the variable declarations in a single line. Remember the variable declarations could be split over multiple lines, horizontally speaking, but I have it this way to save space. And because we want to focus on a particular product and not all products, as you might imagine, why don't you pause the video and ask yourself this question: what should go next? I want to focus on one particular product, and I'm not going to tell you any more than that. All right, so I hope you've got something. And remember, because I want to focus on one particular product, up here I do have the add product ID, integer business, right? I've got a parameter. I can use it to refine my query within the begin and end as follows. I will say where the product ID in the table, so that's the one without the @ symbol in front of it, equals the @ that I pass in to the parameter. So product ID like this. And now the question is this enough? So hover your mouse where it's underlined red and it says the last statement included within the function must be a return statement. We don't have enough. We got to keep going. All right, let's take a look at the next stage here. So where do you continue? Well, remember the following, that we have this table that we're returning called product details. You see that? And this is the header of it right there. So within here, between the begin and the end, we've generated basically values for the local variables, the name, the color, and the list price. And we've done that only where the product ID in the table is equal to the product ID we pass in. So at the next stage, what you can do is take a look. You're going to type insert and then product details, and then you can stick into the table. You're going to say select and name, and then color, and then list price, like that. And at the end of all of this, because of the message, when you hover your mouse over get product details, you have to have a return. So let's do that next. And we'll see whether this actually works or not. So type here return. And all the underlining has disappeared, but the question is, will it work? So the only thing to do is to highlight all the code as shown here, and then just try to execute it to see what the results are. Hit execute, and it says we're getting an error message like that. Well, that's useful too. Obviously, it means I've experimented. That's good. So we're going to just drop it first, okay? So I'm going to say, as an example to show you can do this, I'll say job function, and take a look. If you just try to type get product details like that, you're going to get all kinds of error messages. Take a look. First of all, now that says must be the only statement in the batch, create function that is. So immediately that tells you you need a go. After the end, you put a go to separate things into batches, or it just doesn't work. And I'm going to zoom out here about 180%. Good. So now the underlining from get product details from the header has vanished because of the go. Now this is in its own batch, as it must be according to SQL Server. All right, so try to drop the function, because for example, it exists already. And let's see. Command completed successfully, that's good. And now I'm gonna take this and then try to save it. So hit execute. And look at the messages. Let's see. Command completed successfully, that's good. So now on the left side in the Object Explorer, make sure you are within the AdventureWorks database. And then AdventureWorks, go there. And then go into Programmability. And then go into Functions. And then go into the folder named Table Valued Functions, expand that node. And you may have to right-click and refresh. And make sure that within the Table Valued Functions node, you see Get Product Details. Expand that node, and it's got the parameters, and look at the parameters. The parameters that you see are right there. It's got the product ID. That's the only parameter. So that's the only value you're going to pass in. Pass in the product ID, and it's going to return a whole sequence of columns that give you details about that particular product. Okay, I hope you've got that. Let me move that to the left. And now the next question is, how do you actually make use of this? Well, ask yourself this question. In the previous example, we are able to simply type dbo.function name and then specify, for example, a particular order ID that went into the function used it, and returned one numerical quantity summarizing the line total for that order. That's it. That's how you called that function back there. Here it will be different because think about what you are returning. You are returning an entire table. When you return an entire table, you can use the select. Okay, you can select the columns from the table you are returning. So take a look. I will say something different this time. I'm going to say select, and then for now star, and then from, and then get product details. Now remember, get product details, hover your mouse over it, and it says parameters were not supplied for the function get product details. We need a parameter value, which is also called an argument. So the quantity you stick into a function call is called an argument. When you create the function up here, those are called parameters. These things are called parameters. So the argument is passed into the body of the function with the parameters, okay? So the next stage here, as soon as you put that down, it gives you a nice little tooltip. And if you look at it carefully, it says get product ID at product ID integer returns a table. And when you return that table, that means you can query it the way you query any other table. That's why I can type select star from, and then the function name, and then you specify, for example, 2 as the product ID. Okay, I hope you've got that. I know that's a lot. So let's give this a run and see what comes out of it. Hit execute. Okay, expand the little panel on the bottom, pull it up, and you've got the name returned, correct. You've got the color returned, and you've got the list price returned. So you might ask yourself, what is the ultimate usefulness of all of this? Well, now you've created all of this code. You've got it saved as a function, and you can simply call it as down below here, and it's much more streamlined and much simpler, obviously. So as always, you create it one time, carefully, think about it deeply perhaps, then you save it, and then you reference it very easily just by using this. Of course, here I've given you one particular example. You could refine this, and even if you wanted to, you could include columns here that are computed, or where, for example, you use the case and the when and the then. If you remember back to that lesson, that could all be included here, and you could write a very powerful kind of table valued function that includes a lot of sophisticated code. But then to use it, you would simply invoke it by typing the name of it. You stick in the value here, the argument value. And remember, because the result is a table, you can query it by typing stuff like select star. Or, besides that, you could type, for example, select name, comma, and then the next field. For example, like color, you see? And you can run it this way. Take a look. Hit execute. And look down below. the name and the color only are returned. There you go. All right, friends, I'm going to leave it here.